Where we at?
Hey, so we did chapter 8, which is production, and I'm Corey Haynes.
And I'm Mario Grimaldo.
So there are 5 basic steps that go into food planning. The very first one is the production of food, which means, how long it's going to take to cook and all that kind of stuff. And the second thing is appropriate quantity. You don't want to obviously have too much or too little of food at any kind of event. The third thing is making sure that the food is going to be safe so that you are keeping in mind time-temperature relationship, especially when cooking meat. The fourth thing is budget-friendly. Some events that are larger, they're going to have a larger budget, so you can spend more money on food, but other events, they might be smaller, so you have to get a little savvy and budget-friendly on the food that you buy. And then the last step is scheduling. This one is really important. You got to make sure that you schedule out when it's appropriate to cook food so that it's not going to be out of the oven for too long before it's served. So one important aspect that goes into planning is knowing what kind of food service system it is. And these were covered in chapter 2. But it's important in planning like ready prepared foods. They're not going to take as long, so you don't really have to plan as far in advance with them since they're already just frozen and all you have to do is pop them in the oven. It's not going to take that long. But however, if your food service system is conventional, for example, it's going to take a lot longer and more planning is going to have to go involved into making sure that that food is cooked and then served in an appropriate manner. So there are 6 steps in production. This is from the raw food to the final product. So the very first one is storage. Getting your food, making sure that it's stored properly. Cold foods are stored cold, or frozen foods are going to be frozen. The second thing is thaw time. This applies to frozen foods. You can't just pull a frozen chicken breast out of the freezer and then just pop it in the oven. You have to make sure that it thaws. So you have to take that time into consideration. The third thing is pre-preparation. This is typically like chopping vegetables and fruits and making sides that are like cold, like salads and things like that that don't have to be cooked. Number 4 is preparation. These are things that typically have to be cooked and then prepared by, either on top of the stove or in the oven. Number 5 is assembly. So this is basically like getting your plating ready. So, getting your plate, putting down the base of, per se, like mashed potatoes, and then getting your like pork tenderloin and putting that on top of it, and then any garnishes and things like that. So you're going to assemble all of that together. And then the very last step is holding. And this is done right before serving. This is a very important step, especially for hot foods, because you don't want them out for too long without being hot. So in a lot of restaurants, they'll have like some type of heat lamps above the holding area, but the holding time can't be that long because you have to ensure food safety. So there are 3 objectives of food cooking. The very first one is aesthetic appeal. This is really important. You eat with your eyes first. So if a plate comes to you and it doesn't look good, more than likely you're not going to eat it. The second objective is to destroy harmful organisms for safe consumption. This is really, really important, especially when preparing meats. You really have to make sure that you're cooking meats to their appropriate temperature to make sure that you are killing all harmful bacteria so that people don't, for example, from a chicken breast, get salmonella in your restaurant. And the last objective is to improve digestion and increase nutrient absorption. So there is a recipe formula. And so a recipe is just a statement of ingredients and procedures required to prepare a food item. And this becomes standardized when the recipe has been tested, and then it's adapted to the operation of different kitchens. And this is really important because it's going to create a consistent product. This is really, really important, especially in a restaurant industry, because you don't want to have inconsistent products. You want to make sure that you're getting the food out there as quickly as possible. So having a set recipe that you know is tried and true and it's going to produce a consistent flavor, texture, and portion size is really, really important. So there are a decent amount of things that go into a recipe formula. The very first one is a format. So different events or restaurants are going to have their format differently. It's just going to be whatever is best for them, how it's arranged. But typically it's just going to be as orderly as possible, especially of the ingredient list. It's typically going to go from what's used at the very beginning and then moves its way down to what's used last. The next thing is a recipe title. Obviously, if you have a recipe in mind that you want to make, you just want to be able to flip through your recipes and go right to it. The third thing is cooking time and temperature. This is typically going to be up at the top, especially the temperature. So you know, oh, I need to preheat my oven to 450. The next is ingredients and quantities. This is important, so you can just go straight to your pantry, get all of your ingredients and check and make sure, oh yeah, I actually do have 4 cups of flour ready to go. The next is procedures. This is just a step-by-step how to make it. So you're going to mix these ingredients with these ingredients in one bowl, these ingredients in another bowl, and then you mix those together. It's just going to lay it all out for you. Then you also are going to have a recipe yield, which is the total amount produced by the recipe. This is really important. You want to know how much your recipe is going to make. So if you're cooking for 50 people, you know that you have enough food for 50 people. It also should have some quality standards on there, like appearance, color, flavor, and consistency. So per se, you're baking a cake, it'll say, once the cake is pulled out of the oven, it should have a golden brown exterior with like a spongy consistency. And then it's also going to have a yield and portion size as well. So this is just a picture of what a recipe card looks like. You can see at the top it has a title, it has your yield, cooking time, ingredients, what you need, and the quantity for that, the preparation steps, so exactly how to make it, and then it also tells you how to store it and how to clean up, which is nice as well. So this is a recipe evaluation. So these are going to be based on external and internal appearance and flavor. And so in a restaurant setting, once they've come up with a recipe, they're going to do a recipe evaluation. They're going to make it 3 times, and then they're going to score each one of those samples on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, yes, this recipe should become standardized, and 0 being, no, this recipe is not good. So this is just a picture of what a recipe evaluation card looks like. As you can see, the factors that they're looking for, internal, external, appearance, and flavor, are on the left-hand side. The recipe would be written at the top, and then it has the different sample numbers. And then this one also has comments. You can say, this was really great, we should definitely make this, or sample number 2 didn't turn out quite right, just so you know, for future reference. So one thing that's important is also recipe adjustment. This is if your yield is 12 for a certain recipe and you need it to make 24, then you would know with the factor method, then you're just going to multiply all the ingredients by a factor of 2. So that's what the factor method is, where a recipe is just multiplied by a conversion factor. There are 4 steps, really simple. 1, you're just going to divide the desired yield by the known yield to get the conversion factor. And then 2, you're just going to convert all the measurements to weight, so like cups to pounds, and then just multiply all of those ingredients by the conversion factor, and then round off if there happen to be any weird fractions or decimals. This one is really simple and is definitely the most commonly used one. Then there's also the percentage method, which is a little more complicated, and there's 6 steps. So 1, you're going to convert all the ingredients from a certain measure to pounds. And then secondly, you're going to total the weight of all the ingredients in the recipe. Thirdly, you're going to calculate the percentage of each ingredient in relation to the total weight, so the sum should be 100%. Fourth, you're going to determine the total weight of the product needed by multiplying the portion weight by the number of servings. Number 5, you're going to add estimated handling loss, and this is different from the previous recipe adjustment, which didn't take into consideration handling loss. And then 6, you're going to multiply each percentage number by the total weight to give the exact amount of each ingredient. needed.
One important factor in production is the forecasting. Forecasting is the production of food needs for a day or other specific period of time, and it's the beginning process to even start production, as you need to know what you need, how much you need of it, and it is vital for financial management. Reasons for forecasting. The main one is to minimize the chance of overproduction or underproduction, because overproduction will result in leftover food that is used at a later time, which runs the risk of the food not meeting quality standards and customer dissatisfaction. Underproduction, the opposite of is results in last-minute food preparation and delayed service, which is also customer dissatisfaction. Historical data is used to determine trends to establish forecasting, such as customers served per each meal, the menu items sold per that meal period, and whether there were leftovers or shortages. And influencing factors include holidays, weather conditions, special events. Criteria for selecting a forecasting method include the cost. You want to make sure that the cost of development, implementation are all reasonable so that you're still making a profit. You also want to make sure it's accurate so that you're not it's not forecasting too much or too little for you and you get exactly what you need. The relevancy of it, you want to make sure that all the data is current and so there's no past data that could be outlining it to screw up your data. You want to make sure you have a good lead time, pattern of food selection, and you want to make sure it's really easy to use and make sure it has a good level of detail and responsiveness to changes. There are a couple forecasting models, one of them being the moving average model. This model just averages records from the past and gives you the amount that you need from the past week or past month maybe. There's also the exponential smoothing model, which is similar to the moving average, except it takes into account for seasonality of data, such as like holidays and special events. There are also regression and autoregressive moving average models. These are sophisticated statistical methods in which past data are analyzed and they determine the mathematical approach. This all comes to give you the quantities to produce. This is determined the portion size, and it multiplies the portion size by the estimated number to be served, and it converts it to pounds. This is known as the EP. And then to determine the amount to order, divide the EP weight by the yield percentage, and then for foods to be purchased, convert the amount needed to the most appropriate purchase unit. Production scheduling is really important at this. It's the decision-making process and communication whereby the production staff is informed of how the actual activity of food preparation is to take place over a specified unit of time. It ensures efficient use of time, equipment, and space by identifying what menu items to prepare, what quantities to produce, when individual items are to be produced, and who is to prepare each item. Production schedules help with this. It's just a detailed sheet that communicates with the production staff the work that needs to be done. And production meetings help build on this, and they build on the effectiveness of the written production schedule by discussing the menu and production plans. There's a certain food flow that has to go into account for this. It starts with the preparation of ingredients, which includes the thaw time for frozen meats, cleaning and peeling of vegetables, retrieving and assembling dry ingredients, which leads into the production of menu items, including combining ingredients and cooking. Then it needs to be held for food under appropriate conditions, such as frozen, refrigerated, or hot hold. Then it goes to the transportation and service to customers. Production control. This is an ingredient assembly is common control measure in which ingredients are weighed, measured, and assembled in a central preparation room or area. And having a centralized ingredient assembly increases production, improves security, assists consistent quality control, and provides efficient use of equipment. The personnel and equipment obviously play a major role in this. It is important that the ingredient personnel be well qualified and that they be provided with adequate equipment. The equipment should consist of at least Work tables, counter scales, mobile storage, shelving, refrigeration, sinks, water supply, trash receptacles, and measuring utensils. The portion control is used to contain cost and ensure nutrient composition of menu items. Standardized portions are important not only for cost control, but also in creating and maintaining consumer satisfaction. Food is portioned by weight, measure, or count. Then it goes through a product evaluation, as mentioned earlier. It is part of the initial testing phase of a new recipe and is important for quality control. It is an ongoing process to ensure that the yield expectations and quality standards established during the recipe standardization process are met each time a menu item is produced. The evaluation judges quality characteristics in the interest of the customer, such as flavor, texture, and appearance. These are our discussion questions. Number 1, referring to slide 2, what do you feel like is the most important aspect of food planning other than quantity? And number 2, what makes production scheduling so important? Thank you.
Okay. End meeting.